It's 3 years since I moved to Ireland, and I had this grand vision of learning how to build a self-sufficient life. You know, growing food, keeping chickens, and just making a cosy little sanctuary out here in the countryside. I'd already started a YouTube channel by then. I was living in London but making plans to move to Ireland, and I thought it might be fun to document the whole process of moving here and building a new life. I had all these plans and ideas, but instead of sharing them, I just needed to disappear, at least for a little while. Have you ever felt like that? The need just to retreat from the world with minimal input from anyone else? I mean, I could have shown you a very curated, cosy version of life in the Irish countryside, maybe throw in some nice landscape shots and a soundtrack of wistful piano and a soothing voiceover of homespun wisdom, but that would have felt very disingenuous. Or I could have shared a very raw, unfiltered version of someone recovering from grief, loss, and burnout. And I did consider it, but that would have been a bit much, even for me. And also, I just didn't want to experience life through the lens of creating video content. I needed just to live privately for myself. But I had a feeling that one day I'd be ready to show my face on camera again, and it looks like today's the day. So this is just a quick catch-up before continuing in a slightly different direction from what I'd anticipated. I've moved around a lot, I've chopped and changed, so if there's one thing I know, it's that when you make a fresh start, you're usually brimming with energy. You're full of motivation for the next big project or life chapter. That's been my experience anyway. But this time was different. And I came to understand that sometimes when someone makes a big life change, it's because they are spent. They're running on empty. And for me, after years of loss and burnout and dreaming big and falling hard, more than once, what I actually needed to do was not much of anything. What I realised is that the whole self-sufficiency vibe can be quite goal-focused in its own way and demands a fair amount of logistics and planning and self-discipline, and those were all things I was tired of doing in my previous life as a busy teacher. The thing is though, life in Ireland has afforded me one great luxury. It's the first time in my adult life I don't have to worry about rent. And while sadly I don't have the bank balance to retire completely, it feels amazing to finally be out of survival mode. Now, I'm usually someone who throws myself into new projects. There's this quite intense side of my personality which tends to give things 110%. But I'd come to realise that that way of doing things had simply stopped being useful to me and was actually quite damaging and counterproductive. So I used this opportunity, moving to Ireland, to learn to let that go. So instead of diving headlong into digging vegetable plots and clearing hedgerows and building chicken coops, I decided to embrace something completely new: slow living. Anything I do is from a place of inspiration rather than obligation or some habitual need to achieve. And what's really nuts is how hard it's been to admit that, because like a lot of people, my whole sense of identity and self-worth was really wrapped up in being a hardworking person, in being productive. So for a long time, I did feel quite ashamed to admit that I just wanted to take things easy for a while. Now, just to be clear, don't let all this talk of slowing down fool you. It's actually quite amazing how much you can still get done, even with a slow living mindset. I've explored different interests and possible income streams. I've splashed some colour on the walls, which as a lifelong nomadic renter, I'd never done before. And I've mostly overcome a driving phobia, which was really hard, but I've just about cracked it. And I've got a part-time job in a local community centre. And that's just the small stuff. The first year here was all about unpacking boxes, shifting furniture, and doing paperwork. And paperwork is its own special type of hell here in Ireland, but that's a story for another time. The first big job was new plumbing and heating, when we realised we didn't have any hot water in the back of the house. Hang on, I can hear my bloody dog barking.
Stinky wet dog.
Yeah, so that's something else, becoming a dog owner for the first time, which has been hard work, but lots of fun. It's well worth it. Okay, where were we? So yeah, the plumbing and the wood stove. The whole new plumbing meant in turn that we had to get a new wood burner. So that was another big messy job. Another task we had on our hands was to clear out the ton of shite that the previous owners had left behind in the shed and the old barn, so that needed a big clear out. We also realised that the old barn was a safety hazard, so we had it torn down and then a garage built in its place. And the whole of our second summer was taken up with a complete kitchen renovation, which was very messy, very expensive, but definitely worth it. We also had new insulation and an entirely new roof. The previous one was full of asbestos, so that was fun, more mess and expense. And then as we moved into our third summer here, we decided to treat ourselves to a new front door and, after much thought, solar panels. So when it comes to YouTube, what's changed? Well, I'm a recovering perfectionist, and for a long time I told myself that I had to have everything all figured out before coming back here. But then I realised that's never going to happen. I'll be waiting a lifetime. So instead, I'm just starting right where I am. At 47, I'm a late Gen Xer. I've got some stories. The teacher in me always wants to share what I've learned, and let's just say I've learned a lot of things the hard way. And as for my niche, I still don't really know yet. I think for now the niche is me. I'm just going to turn up and talk about whatever I feel like talking about, whether that's personal growth, mental health, life here in Ireland. I'm sure I'll have plenty more to learn and share as I embrace the chaos of perimenopause. The main thing is I want to live well. I want the second half of my life to look very different from the first half. Less drama, less self-doubt, more joy and clarity. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who feels this, so how about you? If any of this resonates with you, let me know in the comments. And thanks for taking some time with me here on this very tiny YouTube channel. Hopefully it'll grow, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.